All right, guys, let's be real. Email freebies and random website banners are not cutting it anymore. Growing your email list and your bank account as a small business owner is more competitive than ever. People are not handing over their email or their hard-earned cash for something that doesn't feel valuable to them. And that's why you need Badao. And you can get 25% off your subscription with the code Elizabeth. So if you haven't heard of it yet, Badao is the ultimate software for supercharging your email list building efforts and making sure your website visitors see the right message at the right time. Badao works with all the best email marketing platforms like Flowdesk, ActiveCampaign, and Kit, you name it. And it was acquired and rebranded by Showit about 6 months ago, and I have been obsessed ever since. And honestly, if it's from Showit, you know it's going to be amazing. So here's a few ways I've been using Badao in my business so you get the picture. So showing a pop-up for a freebie only on my blog posts that are geared towards designers, displaying a coupon code to visitors right as they're leaving my site, promoting sales with the targeted pop-up for people coming from specific websites, and one of my new favorites, a feature of adding social proof pop-ups in the corner of a browser to show recent and real-time purchases or email signups. Badao makes it ridiculously easy to connect with your audience in a way that feels both personal and strategic. And seriously, I've had my mind blown by all the features like targeting new visitors differently than returning ones or popping up an offer after someone's browsed a certain number of pages. So here's the best part. Badao is offering 25% off for a limited time with the code Elizabeth. So this is the best deal you will find. And I'm so excited to share it with you because I know this will transform your business sales like it has mine. Head to elizabethmccravey.com/Badao. That's BDOW to snag this 25% off deal. Plus you'll find a free Badao template that I designed to help you get started. So again, save 25% with the code Elizabeth. And now let's dive into today's episode. All right, friends, I am so excited for this episode today, and it's one that I think will become one of my personal favorite episodes that I ever record on this podcast. I truly think that this is an outline. It's 8 pages that I'm about to kind of walk you through that I've been working on for months now, and I feel like I'm healed from a cold I've had, so hopefully my voice stays, but also I feel like I'm ready now to record this and talk about this, and I hope these tips are so helpful to you and that this impacts your life and that you can share with other moms or moms to be in your life. So many of you guys, like myself, had a business before motherhood, before having babies. It's also really common to start a business after becoming a mom. That might even be more common, but that's such a different experience from having a business that you love and care about, that you poured potentially years and so much energy into, and then making this huge life change of becoming a mother. In my own experience, I had my business for 5.5 years before becoming a mom, and I built it up to a lot of different things, from like having a template shop to this podcast and courses, like so many things before becoming a mom. And now I'm a mom of 2, and I've got baby 3 on the way now. And as I've even had more kids and now pregnant again, more and more has changed and shifted in my motherhood and in my work journey. So today, though, I'm talking mainly to business owning women, a side hustle counts, okay, whatever you want to call what you're doing, who are expecting or thinking about having a baby. Also, maybe you're in your first year or so of motherhood. I think you'll find a lot of this helpful too. So maybe you're thinking about or trying to conceive or adopt. You have a baby on the way. You have a new baby, or you're within that first year or two. Or maybe you're like me right now, when you're adding another baby when you already have 1 or 2 kids. This episode is for you. And I think this is going to be an encouraging pep talk in a lot of ways, but also just some things that maybe you haven't been told. A lot of this is stuff that I wish someone had told me as a new mom, that now I want to tell you as a mom of 2 with a 3rd on the way, that I think will be really helpful to you in your business journey, both from a mindset perspective. Some of this is mindset stuff, but then also from just like a practical, like preparing your business to have big shifts and to work on less hours and things like that, that again, I think will be really helpful. So I pray this episode blesses you. It's one I poured so much thought and energy into. And now here's the intro music, and then we're going to get started. Hey guys, I'm Elizabeth McCravey, an online educator for entrepreneurs, website designer, wife, boy mom, and your host for the Breakthrough Brand podcast, the show that's all about pulling back the curtain on how to actually build a successful business. I don't skim the surface around here. If you want to dive deep into the nitty-gritty details of what it takes to run a sustainable business that fits your unique lifestyle while standing out in a crowd, then you are in the right place. I created a multiple 6-figure a year business in my early 20s, And now in my 30s, I'm still running that successful multiple six-figure year business on just part-time hours now as a working mom. I'm here to share everything I've learned and everything I'm still learning because I believe that the keys to building a thriving business should never be a secret. Here you'll find episodes that are actionable, direct, and fun, like friends chatting business over coffee, and a fresh, honest take on the reality of being an entrepreneur. If you're ready to master online marketing, website design, personal branding, mindset, time management as a busy parent, scalable and passive income, and business strategy, then this is the podcast for you. It's time to build your breakthrough brand. Let's do this. All right, guys, like I said, this episode is all about how to navigate becoming a mom when you already have a business, when you're already operating a business. And this is stuff I wish someone had told me as a business owning woman who was becoming a mother. So I have 6 tips for you, mainly all related to you and your business, but some also just related to motherhood in general. And let me just set the context before I share these tips. So I'm a mom to little children, okay? I don't know what it's like to be a mother to an elementary school age kid or a middle schooler or a teenager. My oldest is getting close to 3.5 years old now. And then I also have an 11-month-old, and I'm pregnant and due this summer with my 3rd baby. So I'm going to have a 16-month age gap between my 2nd and 3rd. And then I have about a 2.5-year age gap between my oldest and my 2nd. So that's my motherhood situation. And again, I had my business for about 5.5 years before becoming a mom. Okay. So these are my tips for you as someone who had a business a long time and then was like, all right, I'm having a baby. Let's see what happens. This is stuff I wish someone had told me. Okay, so let's dive into it in no particular order. So my first tip, don't assume what you'll want for your business until after you meet your baby, okay? So it's very important during pregnancy to talk for real with your spouse or significant other, or if you're a single parent, like with your community and anyone who's going to be helping you with this baby. I'm talking about like what both of your working lives are going to be like with a baby in a mix. Like what's your life going to be like now with work? What's your spouse's life going to be like now with work? And making a plan and planning to execute that plan. So I'm not saying in this tip not to make a plan is my point though. And I can't tell you what plan is right for your family. I'll kind of talk about some of that a little bit in this episode, but I'm not going to try to tell you what plan's right because some of you might be single moms. Maybe your husband works insane hours and has no work flexibility. Maybe you work crazy hours in your business. Maybe you have a 9-to-5 and a side hustle. Maybe you're becoming a stay-at-home mom for sure for the first time. And your life is going to be so different from everyone else's. So can't tell you what you should do, but what I can tell you is that I want you to know that whatever you think you want, like you may come up with this awesome plan, which again, I think you should try to plan, right? Whatever you think you want though, might change once your baby is born. So just come into the plan with lots of flexibility and being easy on yourself. So just as an example, you might think, I'm going to do full-time daycare. I'm enrolled in a daycare and I'm going to do a short maternity leave. But then when your leave's over, you're like, I don't want to send my baby to daycare. And I want to be able to keep my baby home with just a little bit of childcare that is different than a daycare. Maybe it's part-time daycare in order to still run your business. Like maybe that's your situation and you had no idea you would feel that way. Maybe you were in daycare as a child or all your friends do daycare. So you're just like, of course, that's what I'm going to do, right? But now here you are after you're meeting your baby and you feel differently than you thought you would. Or maybe you're the opposite and you think, I don't need any childcare and I'm just going to do my business completely during nap time. And now baby's here and you realize that's not going to cut it for you to run your business and maintain your sanity and take good care of your child because you need real breaks. And so now you're looking into like, okay, what could some childcare options look like? So just know that changing your mind is not failure and you really just can't know something until you're in it. And I share both those opposite examples just to show that like in all the directions, things can change once baby is actually here. And it's a similar concept to how all of the head knowledge about baby things really doesn't, it's good to have, okay, but it doesn't really like do much until you go do it. So I remember so vividly. So I was pregnant with my first baby. I was all about the courses on birth, on breastfeeding, on baby care, and like books and learning all the things. And I read the book Ina May's Guide to Breastfeeding. I also read her birth book. Like it's all great stuff, okay? So I felt like I knew a lot about breastfeeding, right? I had all the head knowledge. And then when it came time to breastfeed, I'm not joking. I literally felt like I had not even read a book on the topic. I was like, wait,
I remember it said this, but like I have an actual baby here now and I'm trying to do this thing. Like, how do I actually do it? So it's just so different doing the thing versus talking about doing the thing. And sometimes something that sounds good on paper when you plan it may not actually sound good in real life. So just be adaptable, and also be adaptable for change as your baby grows. And if you do have more children, adaptable again as you have more kids, because maybe what you wanted for your work life when you just had one might change when you have two or three. Or if you only have one child, when that child stops napping or when they go to school for the first time, what you see your work life looking like might change again. So I know that's been so true for me personally, which is why I want to share that one, because I know for me, I'm constantly reevaluating my work life, especially like with a third baby on the way. And everything can change and shift, and it's just for a little bit of time. It's just a season. Before having kids, oftentimes the way it looked for me is like a season can be more like a year. And then when you're in the trenches of like early years of motherhood, a season can be like 3 months when the baby's on the SNAP schedule, or when they're not eating solids yet, or when you're only breastfeeding and not using formula. I mean, all these different things can be like their own little seasons. And then it changes just really quickly. So anyway, whatever you want is okay. It doesn't matter what another mom you see is doing. It doesn't matter what your own mom did or what your friends do. It doesn't matter what you used to do or what you thought you would do. So I would just want to encourage you to be prayerful about God's will for you and your family in this season of huge change, and be adaptable and unafraid to say like, hey, you know what? I thought I wanted this, and I'm actually living it now and I don't like it and I don't think this is working. Or, hey, this was working until our baby was 6 months old, and now all these things have changed and that's not working anymore now. So just don't be afraid to change. Be adaptable. So it doesn't mean you were wrong originally. It just means you didn't have the lived experience yet, or the experience you're living has changed and now you got to readjust. So just be really flexible and open to like heart changes around what you thought you wanted with your baby. Okay, now my second tip. Okay, this is a more very specific business-oriented one. Learn how to delegate and let some things slide that you used to obsess over. So I think moms are really great and efficient business owners because you learn to not waste time, to cut things out that don't matter, and to delegate well. Like, that is a skill that motherhood will teach you if you let it teach it to you. So let it. I mean, seriously, I feel like since becoming a mom, I have become a better business owner. Does that mean business is easier since becoming a mom? No, it's definitely harder since becoming a mom. But I think I've become a better business owner because I've learned what's important, and I've learned what's important to me in this season and what's important literally in running my business. So try to let motherhood teach you that skill. And I will say, if you don't let motherhood teach you that skill, you may be driven crazy by having less time to obsess over things in your work, in your home, like wherever, because you just can't do all the things anymore. So I would encourage you before a maternity leave, so before that leave, like when you're pregnant or expecting to adopt, to really like look at things you do daily, weekly, monthly in your business and look for holes. Like, keep a running list of things. Look for what's not even necessary, but maybe you're doing just because you had the time and you think you need to, but like maybe you're like really looking like, maybe that's not actually necessary. Okay, so that's one thing to look for. Second thing to look for what could be automated using the tools you already have in your business, or even by buying a new tool, investing your money in something else. 3, look for what could be delegated to an existing team member or by hiring someone. Becoming a mom might also be a time that you make that first like independent contractor hire. And 4, look for what could be done more efficiently by you still, or by a team member, just like done more efficiently. So maybe the things that can't be cut, but can have like the time cut down on. And if you want to like relook at that list, go to elizabethcravey.com/305. And I have a written blog post with this episode. Well, I'll be sure to have that list so that you can like really look at it and go over it. But yeah, just look for what can be changed. And you might find that your business did not need the level of attention on that particular thing that you thought it would. And that's certainly been my experience with so many different facets of my business. But when I was actually preparing for my first maternity leave, okay, so that was 4 years ago-ish, I guess now at this point, I did this very intensely, okay? It was like as soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, wow, like there's a lot of stuff I do in my business that like I need help doing in order to actually take some time off or in order to scale back how much I'm working, which is what I ultimately did with my first and like going forward since then. Because my first, we didn't do outside the home childcare until he was 14 months old, and my husband and I kind of tag teamed it while my husband was in graduate school. So that was my experience with my first. Been different since then. With my second and now with my third, it'll be different. But when I was preparing for that maternity leave, I found things that I could have a team member do. I found things that everyone needed to just stop doing because it was a waste of everyone's time, and things that I could create a stronger system around. So those are just things I just looked for daily in my business, kept a running list of. Keeping a list on your phone is great because that way you can always edit it whenever you think of something. But you need to ideally do this before baby comes, okay? Because you're going to need time to work it out and make the changes before you're actually out of your business for a time. So keep that rolling list of things to evaluate as you find them. And I have some real examples from my own business that I discovered in my first leave that I want to share with you, just so you can kind of see this in action, okay? And my business is more digital product based at this point. So a lot of these apply to that kind of business, but yours might be very different than that, okay? So one thing, I have failed payments, okay? I run digital product business. I sell templates and courses. So for a long while, basically the whole time I'd had my business, I was in charge of all failed payments, okay? So if someone's payment fails, I'm the one contacting them. I'm the one tracking like, okay, whose payments are failed, whose hasn't. Do I need to email this person again? All of that kind of stuff. And that is something that has to happen, okay? But does it have to happen by me? No. So I delegated it to a team member who made sense to do that because she was already doing all the customer communication. And since then, since that first maternity leave, she has still been doing that role. And that was a perfect shift that, again, I did when I was still pregnant. And then we executed all the way when I went on maternity leave, okay? Another thing, I was writing all of my own show notes for episodes for this podcast. Okay, I had this podcast before becoming a mom. I think I was over 100 episodes in even before becoming a mom. And I was writing all the show notes. I was not writing the blog post, but I was writing the show notes. And I actually did that all the way until my pregnancy with my second, okay? So that was something I kept longer and held on to longer, and then had a second baby and realized, wait, like this is something I could stop doing. So I delegated this to Kara, who writes the blog post for my episodes. And it made sense for her to write the show notes as well. She has my outlines. Like when she writes the show notes for this episode in particular, she's going to literally look at this 8-page outline and write it from that. So that made my podcasting process faster and gave the role to someone who'd already made sense for. Okay, third thing, I used to do a sales tracker thing for my business. You may have actually heard me talk about this on the podcast before, and I loved it. I think it was awesome to have that level of data about my sales, but it also took so much time and precision. And I cut that out right before my son Ethan was born. And that was great. I didn't delegate it. I just cut it. And I decided that at least for this season of life, I don't have the capacity to go into that much detail on every single sale that happens in my business. Okay. So there was also a time when I was on my maternity leave with my second, Ethan, where anytime an interview aired, my podcast manager, Kara, was the one that posted about it, not me. Now I post about it again, but just like I delegated my Pinterest management briefly. I mean, there's so many things. So those are just some simple examples. I could share more, but I hope that helps you get the picture. And it's stuff that, like, again, you just got to pay attention to it daily in your business. Just kind of like look at like, oh, I'm doing this thing. I don't really know if I need to do it. Or like, oh, that took me 2 hours just now. I don't know if I'm going to have 2 hours to devote to this every week once I have a baby, or once I execute my maternity leave, or once I start staying home partially, whatever it is. It's going to look different for everyone. I know your business definitely looks different from mine, but my biggest tip is just start exploring this for yourself while you're pregnant, and make this something you're working on before your maternity leave. Okay, so number 3, and I have 3 more after this one. This is another practical business one. Plan for a longer maternity leave than you think you will want. So you are your own boss, okay? In your business, you're your own boss, and you have to give yourself time off. No one is going to do it for you. That's the biggest thing I can emphasize. You do not have an employer who's going to say, here's your 12 weeks paid or unpaid maternity leave. Take it, okay? You have to do it yourself. And time off done well does not just happen to you, okay? It happens with effort, structure, and planning. And so plan, use that skill that you've used probably in other areas of your business to plan for time off. You've used it to plan for launches and sales and, creating things. Now use it to plan time off for yourself. So my advice, though, to get more particular, is to plan for a longer maternity leave than you think you'll actually want. How long you'll want, I can't tell you. So like, you might have a number in your head that you're like, oh yeah, this is maybe what I did with my first, or this is what my friends did, or this is what the standard US maternity leave is. That's what I think I want. Whatever it is you want, I can't tell you. That is your own decision. But I recommend setting things up in your business that if you want to take more time, you can. Okay. And this helps in many ways. And there's very particular reasons why I recommend this. But one, you may actually just want more time than you thought or need more time than you thought. You never know what can happen in birth that can cause you to literally need more time of recovery for yourself or more needs for your baby. You just don't know. And you also may just be enjoying like soaking up all the like goodness of newborn life and be like, hey, I'm actually not ready to go back yet. Okay. Second thing, maybe you do actually just end up wanting how long you thought, but going back to work is actually like typically for most women, at least, and definitely my own experience, a slower thing and slower than you think. So it might start with like a nap time work session one day. Maybe another day where your husband is with the kids all morning and you're working. Maybe another day you work while your mom visits and you get like 2 hours in. For most of you though, it's likely not going to be like, I'm on leave 100%. I haven't looked at my business at all. And now I'm 12 weeks postpartum and I'm 100% not on leave and I'm working full time. Okay. Like it's going to be much more gradual than that. So planning more time allows you to be more gradual as you ease back into it. And I promise you that's going to feel so much better than going from 0 to 100. Like an ease back into it is just going to feel better because it's going to be hard probably leaving your baby for the first time, even if you're just leaving them downstairs, like with a nanny or with a grandparent. Like it is going to feel maybe harder than you think. And it can be a really gradual process. So to share a little bit of my own experiences. So for me with my first, his name is Colin. He's the one that's close to 3.5 years old now. But I planned for around a 3.5 month off maternity leave. That's what I had like planned for in terms of like how much podcast episode content I had recorded and projects I had booked for one-on-one clients and things like that. I started the leave before he was born, and I ultimately took off 5.5 months. And that did not mean that I did not touch my business at all at those 5.5 months. We also, during that time, we moved houses, which was crazy. When he was 4 months old, we moved houses. I also, during that time, ran my Black Friday sale. So that was some work I did during that period. But I never, not even once, was in my office working like all day, any extended amount of time until he was 6 months old. That was just my experience. And that was what worked for me, that more like gradual shift. And that was more of what I wanted. And I personally think I would have been happy having taken even longer. With Ethan, my second, I took off a solid 3.5 months and I worked all the way up until he was born. So I did not take off like a few weeks before my due date or anything. I found that worked better for me mentally waiting for a baby to come. With Colin, it was hilarious. I took off 2 weeks before my due date and he ultimately was born at 41 weeks. And I very quickly, like 1 week into like my early maternity leave, that I thought I was gonna have so much fun, just like waiting for baby and doing all this fun stuff. I did not like it. And I started working on random work projects just to like distract myself from the waiting. So anyway, though, with Ethan, though, I took 3.5 months off, gradually got back into work, and I'm still not working as much now as I was when I just had one. He's 11 months old now. So I actually never really went back to the work schedule I had before Ethan was born. Same with Colin. I never went back to the work schedule I had before becoming a mom. And with this third baby, I'm planning another solid maternity leave. I don't know how long it's going to be yet. I'm still early enough in my pregnancy that I haven't like plan that out all the way, but I want to plan for another solid leave. So what I feel about this is I would just hate for you listening right now, because I care about you with this. Okay. I'd hate for you to assume that you're going to be fine and dandy with 3 weeks off. And like, yes, I'm going to book a client project for my baby's 1 month old, whatever it is. And you assume you're going to be ready to go because you do love your business so much. And you heard the newborn phase was easy. And you saw someone else, on the internet only took 2 weeks off. Okay. Whatever it is, only to realize that you need more time and you can't take the more time because you have this project booked or you have this episode you have to record or you booked all these interviews or these coaching calls or whatever it is that applies to your business. So I would just encourage you, think about how much time you think you'll want, talk about it with your spouse or significant other, and then try to plan for a few more weeks than that. That can be like your gradual coming back into work. And like I said in my very first tip, be flexible that you might have said to yourself, okay, I want 4 months off and 1 month of gradual back in. And then you realize you don't want any of that and it completely changes. Okay. And also I want to encourage you to don't forget about time off during pregnancy. So an example, on the day you do your glucose test, which I don't know when that is in pregnancy, maybe around 30 weeks. I don't know. I haven't done it yet this pregnancy and I'm 17 weeks right now. But the glucose test, okay, that might be a time that you want to just take the day off of work, especially when you don't have any other kids yet. Take the day off if you want. Go do the glucose test where you kind of have to do some like fasting and stuff beforehand, and then treat yourself to a nice lunch after. Like go meet a friend, go get a pedicure, do something nice for yourself. And then you will also have days in pregnancy where you just need to nap and you're tired, or like you've been having really bad morning sickness and you need a break. And like maybe you have the time to work on your business, but you physically don't feel like you can. I just want to say, be gracious on yourself. Like what you are doing of growing a baby is huge, huge work. It's incredible the way God made our bodies to be able to do this. And like we can be growing a human and not even really be thinking about it. But if the only thing you did all day today was grow that baby, you've done enough. Like that's seriously what I want you to remember when you're pregnant. It's like, if that's all you did, you've done enough. And you're going to do more than that today, right? But that was all you did. You've done enough. And what you're doing is really hard physically. It's tiring. It's all the things. And especially when you talk about subsequent children, right? Because then you also have other kids you're taking care of. And it just is a lot physically. So just be so gracious on yourself and plan time off during pregnancy as well.
Interrupting this episode with a suggestion for the small business owners listening. Ever wonder what you should do for healthcare when you and your spouse are both self-employed, so there's no work-provided health insurance to participate in? Well, when my husband Adam joined me in the entrepreneurial job space over 4 years ago, we joined Christian Healthcare Ministries instead of getting traditional health insurance. And it was the best decision for us, especially in these years of growing and raising a family while also running multiple businesses. CHM is a health cost-sharing ministry and is a faith-based alternative to health insurance. We did tons of research before choosing CHM, and if you know me and Adam, you know we are all about doing the math when making big or small financial decisions. And even though it's not insurance, CHM shares 100% of eligible medical bills, which is more than the typical 70 or 80% of medical bills paid for by insurance companies. All sharing is determined by the CHM guidelines, which you can check out before and after joining. And for the mamas and mamas to be listening, you truly cannot find a better healthcare option for maternity care. I had a vaginal delivery and a C-section and birth center care and hospital care between my 2 pregnancies and births, and it was all 100% shared for. And outside of birth, we've had our share of emergency room visits and procedures as a family, and those costs were all shared by members at Christian Healthcare Ministries, leaving us only paying our monthly contribution. CHM is less expensive month to month than insurance, and because there's no network, you can choose your care with whichever providers best fit your family. I seriously just cannot recommend Christian Healthcare Ministries enough. You've got to check them out. Go to elizabethmccravey.com/CHM for more information. Also putting that link in the show notes, elizabethmccravey.com/CHM. Now back to the episode.
All right, and moving on to tip number 4, this one is really important. It might be my favorite tip of all of these, okay? So I might talk about this one a little bit longer. It is okay to scale your business back so you can be with your kids more, or quit your business altogether, or pause it altogether for a season or forever, if it is what makes sense for you and your family. Okay, that's a really long statement there. We're going to dive into it. But quitting gets such a bad rap out there in business in general. It's like, don't quit your business. You have to strive for your dreams forever. You should stick with it no matter what. And I don't agree with that. I've never agreed with that mentality. And I've talked about this on my podcast many, many times. I think it's good to quit, pause, shift, and change. And doing so is actually a power move when you're doing something that is what makes the most sense for your life and for your family. So maybe it is that you scale your business back. Maybe it's that you pause it and stop it for a season, knowing you'll pick it up again. Maybe it's that you decide I'm actually going to quit this business for motherhood. Okay. So anyway, your seasons of life change and your work outside the home can change too as your seasons of life change. And what the business world often tells us, and again, this bothers me so much, it's not even just the business world, it's just the world in general. Let me rephrase that. The world in general, that it's okay to shift your work or shift your business for any reason but your family, is what the narrative often is. And no one's saying it like that directly. And in fact, I think if you said that to someone, they'd be like, no, who's saying the stuff I'm saying? They'd say, no, that's not what they're saying. But you hear things like, if you change your business or stop your work for your family, then you're not empowering women, or you're going to lose yourself in motherhood, or you're not going to have anything for you, or wow, you should really be contributing financially to your family. That's bad that you're not. You'll be bored if you spend too much time with your kids, or what are you going to do all day if you're home? Or daycare's there for a reason, like you should use it. I've truly heard it all. So it really is like it's fine to change your business, except if it's for your kids, except if it's for your family, it's fine. So anyway, again, you may have heard that narrative as well. Maybe you haven't. Hopefully you don't, but I've heard that narrative many, many times. And so anyway, I want to be someone though who tells you right now that it is great and fine and dandy and a good reason to change things about your business literally for your family because you want to and because it's what makes sense for you in this season. And I also want to remind you that your career is a long game. That's something else you've heard me say in this podcast before. And it does not always feel that way with how technology and business change so fast and how a year of running your business can feel like you've been in it for 100 years. I'm 9 years in right now, and it feels like so much longer than me to that because that's been my whole career. I worked a 9 to 5 for not very long and then started my business. So this has been my whole career. But you have time and it is not a race. Okay. Hear that again. You have time. It is not a race. And if you're like me and maybe you're in your 30s or maybe you're a little younger, you're older than me and you have small children, I just want you to think about how many years of working life you actually have ahead of yourself. It feels like everything is so important right now in your work and in your business, but you actually have so many years of working life ahead of yourself, okay? It does not all need to happen before your baby is 1 or before you're 26 or before you're 35 or whatever age it is. The business goals can take longer, and you might have set up your business in such a way before motherhood that you're always striving towards this next goal, this next income marker, follower count, or email list growth number, or whatever it is, hitting a certain number you're charging for projects. All those things do not have to happen right this second, okay? You can take your goals a lot slower and even pause on a goal for a season. So if you do feel the desire to scale something back or scale the whole thing back for your family right now, maybe it's a part of your business you're scaling back, or maybe it's the whole thing, try it. Just try it. Listen to God's calling in that way and try it. Nothing is permanent in these things. It's not a permanent decision. Stuff can change and shift. So pausing something is not the same as quitting it forever. Even quitting this business you have now is not the same as quitting business as a whole forever. So I truly just don't think you'll ever regret spending more time with your children. It's like what people say about how you'll never regret that workout after you do it. I think it's the same thing, but way more important, that you will never regret investing time in your family, even when it's the harder thing than working. I think, I have days now where I am playing the role of stay-at-home mom, and I'm leaning even more into stay-at-home motherhood in my life right now in this season, which I'm going to talk about more in 2 weeks on the podcast, I think, is when that episode's airing. But with that, it's harder, I think, than running my business. I'm going to be real. Shout out to all the stay-at-home moms, because I really do think it's harder taking care of small children than it is sitting behind this microphone and recording right now in my peaceful, quiet office, right? But I will never regret that time investing in my family. And it's so fun and so special. And I just love, love, love being with my kids. And I personally really love motherhood. It's something I find fulfilling like nothing else, is a simple way to put it. And I feel like it is such a high calling that I really just am honored to get to do. And I love it. And I don't want to miss those moments or take that for granted. And so it does sometimes mean shifting things in your business, downscaling, pausing, quitting, all that kind of stuff. And I think it's okay to do that. And one last thing I want to say in this point that I actually don't even have in my notes, but it's something I thought about when I was first thinking of this episode concept. A lot of women who you think of as their career looking a very certain way, you are looking at their career when they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s even. You didn't see the whole trajectory. So a great example of that in my own life is my grandmother, my dad's mother. She's a mom of 4, and now she is in her 90s. And it's so crazy. Last time I was there visiting them, they live in Asheville, and we went and did a family trip there over Labor Day weekend last year. And it was wonderful getting to visit my grandparents. They're both in their 90s and still kicking it the best they can and just are incredible people. But my grandmother had an extremely accomplished career. She was the head buyer for Kirkland's and was one of the really founding people who worked at Kirkland's home store. and had an incredible career as an interior designer, a teacher. I mean, so many different things, and ultimately made a lot of money in her work. Okay. And I had never really asked her this, but started to really think about it, in actual, just I knew this stuff. I never really asked her, but we were hanging out and I asked her, I was like, okay, I've thought about this recently, but were you doing all that work as an interior designer and working when all of them were, look, she has 4 kids pretty close together in age. I was like, so were you working back then? And she's like, no, honey, I was a stay-at-home mom for years. And I'm like, wait, I don't think of her as having been a stay-at-home mom, but she, when they had their first, she was a stay-at-home mom, had a second, her first was my dad, second, third, fourth, and she stayed home. I don't even remember how many years she said, but then her career came later and she built this incredible career, really helped build up this company that's still around today, and had a really fulfilling career and was able to retire and do the grandparent thing. And it's just really cool. It's a longer game than you think. And I feel for me, at least, her example was a good example to me of just how your career is such a long game. Because I think of her career in one particular way. And it's no, she had years when I wasn't born yet, when she was actually the one having babies. And then I was to come much later from one of her babies where she was staying home with her kids and was a pastor's wife. So it looks different than you think. So anyway, I'm talking about this, like I said, more in the podcast in a few weeks. And sharing some changes I'm doing to my own business with baby 3 on the way. So stay tuned if you want to hear me talk about practically what this kind of looks like for me. But I just really hope that in the right moment, and maybe this is something that's not the right moment for you right now, because again, like I said, in tip number 1 even, I think was when I shared that, but that motherhood can change as your kids grow older and as you have more children, if you do have more children. But to reiterate, it's okay to scale your business back so you can be with your kids more, or quit it altogether, or quit it for a season. If this is what makes sense for you and your family, and it's where you feel God calling you to. Okay, number 5, and this one has less to do with business and more to do with just becoming a mom in general. Motherhood is really fulfilling and it's really hard, and it can be both. It can be both hard and really fulfilling, and hard is not the same thing as bad. So I think this is the real thing about motherhood that's often not talked about, but being a mom can be everything you ever dreamed of. It can be fulfilling. It can be what you want. It can be exactly where you want to be in life right now, but also really freaking hard. And all you want is a break and for the baby to stop crying so you can go back to sleep, or you want potty train to not result in pee all over the floor and a stand down, whatever it is with your toddler, or you want to eat dinner without having to make sure other people are also eating their dinner, or you want to be able to schedule a meeting for work, not around someone's nap schedule that may or may not even happen. I mean, whatever the case, parenthood is hard. And I think being a parent is the hardest job. And I also think it's the most fulfilling work you can do, in my opinion. It has been for me. And parenting gets a bad rap sometimes because it is so hard and it's sacrificial. And we live in a society that often, not always, but often doesn't value kids that much, and also doesn't really put that much value on parents, both moms and dads. And so this can all just be all these things combined, a really hard trajectory you're kind of going on into motherhood. And I believe too that having your first baby is the adjustment of a lifetime. I still think now, I've gone from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, and now next I'm going to go from 2 to 3. So we'll see how going from 2 to 3 is. But at least so far for us, going from 0 to 1 was much harder than going from 1 to 2 kids. And I think that's because 0 to 1 completely rocks your world. From what you were used to work looking like, used to life looking like, used to free time, all of it, used to your sleep looking like. And I remember, in complete honesty, there being some times where I felt sad in my early days of motherhood, thinking, I'll never do that again. And that actually wasn't true. Those thoughts I had were not true. And even though I was so happy to be a mom, there was losses in some way though. And there were some things I've never done again the same way. But more particularly, there were things that don't fit into the newborn stage, or maybe even when your kid's under 1, that I felt some grieving over. So I just want to say, if you experience moments where you're discouraged, or you're I missed this part of my life before kids, it does not mean that you don't like your baby or that you don't want to be a mom. It just means that it is a hard job you've taken on. It's again so fulfilling, and I the love for your baby, I can't even describe. It's amazing, but it is really hard. And one particular memory I have that I can share with you guys, I don't have this in my notes, but it might be helpful. But when Colin was, a few weeks old, I don't remember how old, but quite little. And we had a lot of breastfeeding struggles. He had head preference struggles. We had to do feeding therapy, a lot of different things. And he had a lot of colicky issues. So it was hard. Sleep was hard. All that was hard. But I remember my mother-in-law was visiting. Adam was actually out of town on a Young Life trip. So that was hard. But my mother-in-law was there visiting with me, and there was a new episode of Law & Order SVU that was airing. And that has always been a show I've loved, looked forward to new episodes. And so before having kids, it was like, okay, it's a Law & Order night. I'm going to at 6:00 or whatever time I want, I'm going to sit down and watch the show and enjoy a snack or dessert or whatever it is. And it was no ordeal. I do this whenever I want to. But it was we wanted to watch this new episode, and watching it felt like such an ordeal. And so it wasn't time for Colin to go to sleep yet, because, newborn babies often stay up quite late and go to sleep when the parent does. And we were trying to watch this episode while taking care of him, with him crying. And my mother-in-law sweetly was trying to encourage you, Elizabeth, just sit down. You sit down, I'm going to hold him, and you enjoy that LaCroix, And I'm sitting there trying to do that. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to watch TV normally again, which again was not true. But that's how I felt in that moment. It felt like I'm never going to just sit there and watch Law & Order SVU again. The new episode, and really be able to just chill out and enjoy it. And again, was not the case. I actually, just 2 days ago, watched the new Law & Order SVU with some dessert, and after the kids were asleep, and it was great. But in those early days, it can feel like, oh my gosh, this thing feels so long and it's so permanent. And that's not necessarily true. But anyway, that was just a little story to kind of iterate this point. But motherhood, again, really fulfilling, really hard. It can be both, and hard is not the same thing as bad. And so when you have those hard moments, know that that doesn't mean motherhood's bad. It just means it's a hard job. And there's definitely things you don't like about the job of doing your business too. That doesn't mean your business is bad. So anyway, I think motherhood's so fulfilling, even in those hard moments. Okay. And our last one, I really just want to close this episode by encouraging you that you can do this. Okay, that's what this last one is. So you can do this tip. You can do the motherhood and the business thing if you want to do it. So I think owning a business is truly the best job you can have as a mother if you're going to work and not stay home 100% with your kids. It truly is the best kind of work you can do. And I personally am just so grateful. I feel this literally all the time, just filled with gratitude that I built this business and I get to make money from home while I'm with my kids or with very little childcare, and with my kids at home with me a lot of the time. And I'm not going to pretend to be one of those people that, I see reels on Instagram and all the time that probably originated on TikTok, but people saying that they work no hours, only from their phone, they're a full-time stay-at-home mom and make all this money. That is not what I'm saying. I have childcare. Right now I'm recording this podcast. Both of my children are in paid childcare, but I am grateful to be able to do this from home. And today I've been downstairs 100 times seeing my baby, and I feel this all the time. And not everyone can do that, right? It's a privilege for sure, but it's also something you can work for and set up for your life to be able to do it, to be able to have a business, run your business with your kids. Your business is a gift. And I believe we should see our businesses that way. It's truly such a gift to be able to do this kind of entrepreneurial work. And you can scale it up or scale it down, depending on your season with your family. You can do it at home, or you can do it on the go. You can choose how long your maternity leave is versus your employer choosing it for you. You can choose your work hours. You can choose to work when makes sense with your kid's schedule and whatever it is, but you have to decide on those things. So don't let your clients or your calendar or your customers rule you in pregnancy and postpartum. People are often way more gracious than you think. And I've seen way too many friends with businesses assume my clients won't understand. They won't understand me taking time for baby and things like that. So they just don't do it. And they try to keep running their business as if they don't have a baby, as if they aren't a mom. And so I just want to encourage you, you don't have to do that. People are much more gracious than you think. And if they're not going to be gracious towards you about that, they're probably not a good client to have to begin with, because they probably are also not gracious in other ways of working with you. So I just want to encourage you, take the half day to do your glucose testing, take a full day off, like I was saying, take naps, spend less time on the project in order to rest. Do not be the world's worst boss. Give yourself an actual maternity leave and plan it well. You're in charge, not your clients, not your customers, not your team either. Okay. You are the one in charge of your business. And like I said, you can do it. What the it is, only you can define. Okay. But know that whatever you define your it to be, that you're going to go for, you can do it. And you might change. You might change what you want, like I said earlier, but you can do it. Your motherhood and business journey is not going to look the same as mine. It's not going to look exactly like that business owner you follow who seems to have it all together all the time when it comes to work and motherhood. It's not going to look exactly like your friend or your own mother or your mother-in-law or your sister or anyone else. Your journey is going to be your own for your unique family, your unique self, and your unique children. And you can do it. You just need to define what the it is, what the goal is, and then define it over and over and over again as things change. Because again, things will change as your kids age or if you add more children to the mix and them aging. So another thing I want to add to this, just a little encouragement for you, is that you are going to or already are learning a new skill, and new skills take time. I remember first getting pregnant, and it's like all of a sudden you're like, wait, you don't know what like prenatals to take. You don't know what's happening this week in pregnancy. Like you don't know much about birth, perhaps. Like there's so much you're learning, and learning the skill takes a lot of like learning time, first of all, but also takes time to like master the skill. It's not something where like you're going to have a baby and like because of mother's instinct, you already got it all figured out. Breastfeeding's easy because mother's instinct. Like that's not how stuff works. Okay. Today I actually saw a prayer journal, a prayer in my prayer journal. I used the Hosanna Revival 5-year prayer journal. I love it. So you see prayers you wrote years and years ago, and I'm on my 4th year in it. So I have one more year after this. I'm able to see prayers from a long time ago, but I saw a prayer from this time. I'm recording this in January. So it was January of 2022 when my son Colin was around 5 months old, and I was trying to start working more after having him. We had just moved into our new house and I was struggling, and it was a prayer of struggle. And I literally wrote in my prayer journal, praying to God, I'm having a hard time moving between mom stuff and work stuff, and I feel like I can't do both well. And I was praying for the skill to be able to manage both and move between both. And I do remember that. Like it felt so hard. Like I get in the zone in business and all of a sudden it's time to nurse or time to put him down for a nap or whatever it is. And I will say I did develop the skills somewhat, but it's a development and process, right? I developed the skill with 1 baby at that age. And now I'm developing the skills again with 2, which is a lot different. And now I'm going to have to figure out again with 3. Like it's just so different as things change. And it is a skill development thing, and it takes time. So be gracious on yourself that you are learning and growing alongside your children, both in motherhood and in other areas of your life. So it's a new skill you're acquiring, just like you had to learn how to do your business's finance or how to customize your website. It's a skill you'll learn and learn over again in new ways, and relearn as seasons change and things shift, but something you have to learn. So just be encouraged in that you can do it. You can do the business and motherhood thing. It's just a lot of learning, and the learning's okay. And it's a good, beautiful way. You'll see so much personal growth through motherhood as well. Like I feel like I've changed and grown so much as a person, even since becoming a mom. So that is it for this episode. I'm going to recap these real quick to kind of give you a reminder. And as I read through them, I want you to think through like which one stood out to you that maybe you could take action on in some way today. So first one was, don't assume what you'll want for your business until after you meet your baby. So like I said, like make a plan, okay? But be flexible on the plan and know that you may have thought you wanted one thing, and then once baby's here, once baby's a little older, you realize you want something different. Second one, learn how to delegate and let some things slide that perhaps right now you are used to obsessing over in your business. And I talked there about how becoming a mom can make you a really awesome business owner if you let it, because you learn how to be way more strategic with your time and seeing what's important in your business. 3, plan for a longer maternity leave than you think you'll want. And then 4, it's where I talked about how it's okay to scale your business back so you can be with your kids more, or quit business or pause it for a season or forever. Just knowing that like you have to make a decision for yourself. And if that's one that really speaks to you, I would just encourage you to be prayerful about it, spend some time journaling about it, spend some time talking to your spouse or significant other about it, and just really lean into like trying to make a decision there, and knowing that decisions can also be made slowly versus being like a big shift all at once. Okay, 5th one, motherhood is really fulfilling and hard also at the same time, and it can be both. It's not either or, it can be both. And something being hard is not the same as it being bad. And yeah, motherhood can be hard, but it's awesome. And then last one was just that you can do it, and you can do the motherhood and business thing if you want to. You just have to define what the it is, what the goal is for you right now in this current season with motherhood and business, and know that that goal, the goal post and what you're working towards might change over time. So anyway, that is it, friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if this was impactful to you in any way, I would love to hear from you. You can send me an email. You can message me on Instagram. I'm at Elizabeth McCravey. My email is hello@elizabethmccravey.com. But I'd love to hear from you. And if there's a mom in your life, a new mom, an expecting mom, someone who has a business but's like thinking, I want to have children in the next few years, please send this episode. And I hope this can be a help to both you and them as you navigate adding a baby to your business. All right, that's it, friends. I'll be back next week with another episode. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the podcast, friend. I appreciate you being here. That just flew by, didn't it? Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, I really want to encourage you to check out my website where you will find tons of resources to help you grow a profitable and sustainable business. Over on ElizabethMcCravey.com, you'll find things like free workbooks, guides, quizzes, lock screens, and checklists to encourage you in your business, help you grow, and give you practical solutions to many business problems. You'll also find my top business tools. Yes, I literally list out all the major ones for you on my website. And I even have a lot of special discounts and offers for you guys to snag as you try these products, services, and softwares. If you want to take the podcast content and make it super actionable, my resource page is here to help. So go to elizabethmccravey.com/tools to access everything. I hope you have fun exploring all of it over there. And if you loved this episode, leave a rating and review for the show wherever you're listening or share with a friend. That's a great way to support the podcast, and I appreciate it so much. Thanks again so much for listening. I'll be back next week with a new episode. Bye for now.